The galaxy always feared the KRL. They were the deadliest warriors among the stars. Their ships carried weapons that could destroy cities in minutes, and their soldiers never showed mercy in battle. Wherever the KRYL went, fear followed. But one day, something strange happened. A KRYL warship entered Earth's orbit, and instead of declaring war, it sent a message that shocked everyone. They were not here to conquer. They were not here to demand surrender. They were here to ask for help. The request was so strange that even the highest leaders of Earth could not believe it. The KRYL wanted humans to protect their children. The news spread across every channel, every screen, and every radio. People whispered in shock. Why would the galaxy's most dangerous killers bring their young to humans? Why would monsters of war turn to mankind, a species still new to interstellar travel, for such a task? The answer was not clear, and that mystery alone filled the air with fear. Inside the great chamber of the United Earth Council, human commanders, scientists, and diplomats sat in silence as the KRYL delegation entered. Tall, armored, and scarred from endless battles, they looked like nightmares made real. But their voices carried no threat. Instead, they carried something far heavier: desperation. "We bring no war," the KRL leader said, his voice like steel scraping on stone. "We bring no chains. We bring only our young. Protect them, for only you can." The humans were stunned. Generals exchanged looks, diplomats whispered, and scientists tried to make sense of it. The KRL had crushed fleets, burned colonies, and fought entire coalitions without fear. And now they were asking humans, fragile humans, to guard the most precious thing they had, their children. "Why us?" the human commander finally asked. "You have the strongest armies. You have the fiercest fleets. Why trust your children to us?" The KRL leader stood tall, his dark eyes unblinking. He did not speak for a long time, and when he did, his words chilled the chamber. "Because only humans can keep them safe." A wave of whispers filled the room. The human officials leaned forward, struggling to understand. What danger could terrify the KRL so much that they would hand their young to another species? The commander pressed again. "Safe from what?" But the KRL leader only lowered his head. His silence was louder than any answer. Outside the chamber, the world watched with restless curiosity. Ordinary people filled the streets, pointing at the skies where the KRL warship hovered like a silent shadow. Some believed this was a trick. Others thought it was a trap to test humanity's weakness. Yet many more wondered if the galaxy had secrets darker than the KRL themselves. Meanwhile, the KRL began to unload their young. For the first time in history, humans saw KRYL children. They were smaller, unarmored, and fragile in ways no one expected. Their bright, glowing eyes showed fear, not aggression. They held tightly to each other's hands, hiding behind their towering guardians. The sight shook the humans watching. These were not monsters. These were children, just like any others, only born under a harsher star. A journalist whispered to his recorder, "The deadliest species in the galaxy has brought its future to Earth. What enemy makes them seek human protection?" Behind closed doors, debates turned heated. Some leaders wanted to refuse, fearing danger. Others argued this was an opportunity to earn the trust of a powerful species. But the human commander kept his eyes on the children. He could see the way they trembled, the way they looked at humans with suspicion and hope. Finally, he stood and faced the KRL leader. "We will protect them," he said, his voice firm. "But first, you must tell us the truth. What do you fear so much that even your warriors cannot stand against it?" The KRL leader raised his head, his scarred face lit by the cold glow of the chamber lights. His answer was short, but every word was heavy. "Because there are hunters in the dark. Hunters even we cannot stop." The chamber fell silent. Humans exchanged uneasy looks. The commander's fists clenched. The KRYL children clung tighter to their guardians. And somewhere far away, in the endless dark of the galaxy, something moved closer. Something strong enough to terrify the deadliest warriors alive. The humans did not yet know what it was. They did not know what storm was coming. But the first piece of the puzzle had been placed. The question was no longer why the HFY had come. The question now was, what horror was powerful enough to send them running to humans for help? The chamber stayed silent long after the HFY leader's words. Hunters in the dark. The phrase echoed in every human mind. It was not a warning, it was a shadow crawling across the room, pressing down on the humans and even on the HFY themselves. Generals whispered to each other, scientists took frantic notes, and the diplomats tried to read the unreadable faces of the alien warriors. But none could escape the same thought: if the HFY were afraid, then something far worse must be moving in the galaxy. The human commander leaned forward, his voice steady but his eyes sharp. Explain. What hunters? What danger forces you to bring your children here? The HFY leader stayed silent for a moment, as if weighing every word, as if even speaking of the enemy might summon it closer. Finally he spoke, his voice low but unshaking. You humans fight with strange fire. You protect the weak, even when you are weak yourselves. Other species do not understand this. They fear it. And the hunters fear it most of all. His words confused the humans. They were brave, yes. They had defended Earth from small invasions and pirate raids. But compared to KRYLL fleets and ancient empires, humanity was still young. They had only touched the edges of the stars. Yet the KRYLL stood here, claiming that humans carried something unique. Something even hunters dreaded. A scientist finally broke the silence. Are you saying these hunters fear humanity more than they fear you? The HFY leader's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Yes, he said. Because humans are not predictable. You bend. You break. But you rise again. No chain holds you for long. The hunters know this. They see danger in your chaos. The humans shifted uncomfortably in their seats. They remembered their own history, wars, rebellions, survival against impossible odds. Perhaps, in the eyes of the galaxy, humans were not the strongest, but they were the most stubborn. And sometimes, stubbornness was more frightening than raw power. To prove his words, the HFY leader began to share stories. The chamber's lights dimmed, and holograms filled the air with visions of past battles. The first image showed a desert world where human colonists were cornered by raiders. They had no army, no weapons, only mining tools and fire. But they built traps, tunnels, and firestorms that forced the raiders to flee in terror. No other race would have tried this, the HFY said. Others would surrender. You humans create victory from nothing. Another vision showed human marines trapped on a frozen moon, outnumbered and outgunned. Instead of retreating, they carved tunnels through the ice, striking from below like ghosts. Their enemies called it madness. The HFY called it terrifying brilliance. The chamber filled with whispers. Even the humans themselves felt chills. They had always known their species could be reckless. But to see it through alien eyes, to see how unpredictability became a weapon, was something else entirely. The HFY leader's voice grew heavier. The hunters know this. They hunt the young of every species to prove their power. But when they face humans, their hunts fail. They fear you, because you will fight for the innocent even when the fight is already lost. The human commander's jaw tightened. You said they hunt children. Is that why you brought yours here? The HFY leader nodded slowly. Yes. The hunters move again. They come for our children. Against them, even our fleets cannot promise safety. But your kind guards its young like no other. You fight like wolves when your cubs are threatened. That is why we are here. That is why only humans can keep them safe. The room fell into a heavy silence once again. The images of burning worlds and desperate battles hung in the minds of all present. For the first time, humans realized their reputation across the stars was not just of explorers or soldiers. It was of protectors. And protectors were sometimes more feared than conquerors. Outside, news spread like wildfire. People across Earth argued and debated. Some were proud that humanity's courage was finally recognized. Others were afraid of these mysterious hunters, afraid of being dragged into wars not their own. Children asked their parents why monsters would fear humans, and no parent had a simple answer. Back in the chamber, the commander stood. His face was hard, his eyes locked on the KRL leader. If what you say is true, then we must know more. Who are these hunters? What do they want? And how close are they? The KRL leader's hand twitched, a rare sign of unease for such a warrior. They call themselves the Zarkesh. They are not many, but they are everywhere. They do not conquer planets. They do not steal resources. They take children. To them, it is a game. To them, it is proof that no one can protect the innocent. But when they failed to break humans, they grew restless. Now, they come for us. And soon, they may come for you. The humans stiffened at the name. The Zarkesh. A predator race moving in the shadows, hunting not armies but futures. And now, according to the KRYL, their eyes were turning toward Earth as well. The commander's voice hardened. If they come, we will not hide. We will fight. The KRYL leader studied him for a long moment, then gave a small nod of respect. That is why we are here. That is why the galaxy whispers of you. You fight for what matters. Outside the great windows, the KRL warship still hovered above the planet, silent and waiting. But the humans knew silence would not last. Somewhere in the dark, the hunters were already moving. The first transport of KRL children arrived on the human colony of Haven 4, a green and quiet world on the edge of safe space. Human soldiers lined the landing bay as the alien craft descended, engines glowing like fireflies in the night. The doors opened with a hiss, and for the first time, the children of the deadliest warriors stepped onto human soil. They were small compared to their armored guardians, their glowing eyes wide with fear, their thin frames wrapped in protective cloaks. Some clung to each other, others hid behind their guards, whispering in their own language. The human soldiers, hardened by wars of their own, stood quietly, their weapons lowered, showing no threat. But inside, they felt the weight of this strange duty. Protecting their own was one thing. Protecting the children of an alien race that once raided colonies and burned fleets, that was another. In the first days, trust was thin. The KRL children avoided the humans, refusing food at first, speaking only to their own caretakers. They had grown up with stories of humanity, stories told in whispers, painting humans as unpredictable monsters. Some tales described humans as shadows that never died, enemies who would rather burn the galaxy than surrender. To these young minds, humans were a frightening myth. But slowly, things began to change. The human caretakers were patient. They brought food not in rations, but in warm meals that smelled rich and inviting. They offered toys and small games, things no KRYL child had seen before. They showed them music, letting simple notes echo through the halls. And one by one, the children began to peek out from their fear. A soldier taught them how to throw a ball. A nurse taught them how to paint with colors brighter than any KRYL battlefield. Laughter, soft at first, began to fill the halls of the colony. The KRYL guardians, standing at the edges, watched in silence. They had expected suspicion, even cruelty. Instead, they saw humans opening doors they themselves had never known how to open. For the first time in KRYL history, their children were learning something other than war. But peace did not last long. One night, alarms tore through the colony. Sirens wailed, lights flashed red, and soldiers rushed to their posts. Unknown ships had appeared at the edge of Haven 4's atmosphere, their signals scrambled, their weapons hot. The human commander's voice thundered across the comms. All units, defend the perimeter. Protect the children at all costs. The KRL guardians bristled, their weapons ready, their eyes burning with fury. But the humans moved first, sealing corridors, guiding the children into fortified shelters deep underground. The air grew heavy with fear as the sound of gunfire echoed across the colony walls. The children huddled together, clutching the hands of their human caretakers. Their glowing eyes darted in panic, and some whispered a single word, the Zarkesh. The attackers breached the outer defenses faster than anyone expected. They moved like shadows, small strike teams slipping past turrets and barriers. They did not attack the armories, nor did they aim for command centers. They were hunting, moving directly toward the shelters. For the first time, the KRLL children saw humans fight not as soldiers, but as wolves protecting their pack. Every hallway became a trap. Explosives sealed doors, fire drove invaders into ambushes, and even damaged corridors were collapsed to slow the enemy. The humans fought with a strange mix of discipline and chaos, every move designed not for victory, but for time. Time to keep the children safe. But safety began to crumble. In the confusion, one shelter was breached. When the dust cleared, one KRL child was missing. Panic spread through the survivors. The KRL guardians roared in fury, demanding answers, demanding action. The humans wasted no time. Tracking systems lit up, searching for the child's signal. Moments later, a soft ping appeared on the commander's screen. The missing child's beacon was moving, far too fast. The signal was not on the colony anymore. It was on one of the enemy ships. A heavy silence fell over the command center. Everyone knew what it meant. The Zarkesh had come, and they had taken their first prize. The KRYL leader's voice shook with rage. You swore to protect them. But the human commander did not flinch. His eyes were locked on the moving signal, his jaw hard as stone. We're not done yet. Prepare a strike team. We're getting that child back. Soldiers moved quickly, loading weapons, sealing armor, checking systems. The KRYL guardians looked on in disbelief. They had seen many species lose younglings to the hunters, but none had dared to chase them into the void. Yet here the humans stood, ready to storm an enemy ship for one child not even of their own blood. Down in the shelters, the remaining KRYL children clung to their caretakers, fear and hope tangled together. One of them whispered in a trembling voice, "Will the humans really come back with him?" A nurse placed a hand gently on the child's shoulder. Her answer was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. They will. Because that's what we do. Outside the colony, engines roared as the human strike ship prepared to launch. The missing child's signal blinked on the screen, a small light deep within enemy space. The commander looked at it, then at his soldiers. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. No matter what it takes, we bring him home. The strike ship lifted, vanishing into the black void where the hunters waited. The strike ship cut through the void, engines burning silent blue as it chased the faint signal of the missing KRL child. Inside, human soldiers checked weapons and armor, their faces set with grim focus. The commander stood at the front, eyes locked on the blinking light on his console. It was small, but it pulsed steadily. The child was alive, but trapped inside an enemy ship. The crew knew the risk. No species had ever followed the Zarkesh once they had taken a child. Whole civilizations had tried and failed. But for humans, the thought of leaving even one child behind was unbearable. They would rather die than abandon the innocent. Hours passed in silence until finally the signal stopped moving. It was close now, locked inside a massive ship drifting among the stars. The enemy vessel was unlike anything the humans had seen before. It looked less like a machine and more like a beast, its surface black and ridged, as if it had grown rather than been built. Strange lights crawled across its skin, pulsing like veins carrying some alien blood. The crew watched in awe and fear. The commander only tightened his grip on the console. "That's them," he said. "That's the Zarkesh." He gave the order, and the strike ship powered down to minimum, drifting silently closer, like a predator stalking prey. On board, the soldiers whispered to each other. They had heard stories of the Zarkesh since the KRYL's warning. A race that hunted children, not for resources, not for war, but for sport. They tested the courage of species by stealing their future. If the young could not be protected, the Zarkesh declared the species weak. To them, it was not cruelty, it was a game of dominance. And they had played it for centuries without losing. The humans now understood why the KRL, warriors of unmatched strength, had come to Earth. Against the Zarkesh, raw power meant nothing. The predators slipped through defenses like smoke, striking where protection was weakest. Only a species willing to fight without rules, to bend and break and still rise, had a chance against them. And that was humanity's gift. The commander whispered to his team. "We go in quiet. No heavy fire, no alarms. We get the child, then we burn this nightmare." The soldiers nodded. They knew this was not a normal mission. This was a test, of courage, of cunning, of the very heart of humanity. The strike ship latched onto the enemy vessel with silent clamps. A small team slipped inside through an airlock, their boots making no sound on the dark floor. The corridors inside were twisted, organic, as if carved from bone and muscle. Strange symbols lined the walls, glowing faintly in the darkness. The air was heavy, filled with a low hum that vibrated through their chests. They moved carefully, guided by the signal beacon still faintly pulsing ahead. Then they saw them, the Zarkesh. Tall, lean creatures with pale, stretched skin and eyes that glowed like burning coals. Their limbs were long, their movements sharp, every motion carrying the grace of a predator. They moved in groups, silent as shadows, their senses alert. But they were not watching for soldiers. They were watching the cages. The soldiers' jaws tightened. Dozens of cages lined the chamber. Inside them, not only KRYLL children, but young from other species sat huddled in fear. This was not a simple raid. This was a harvest. The Zarkesh were collecting trophies. Rage burned in the humans' chests, but the commander raised a hand, signaling silence. One cage at the far end blinked with a familiar beacon. The missing KRL child was inside, curled up, trembling, but alive. The team moved closer, every step a battle against the urge to fire. But then, a sound broke the silence. A sharp metallic click echoed through the chamber. A soldier had stepped on a pressure plate. In an instant, the Zarkesh turned. Their glowing eyes locked on the intruders. The chamber exploded in motion. The predators leapt with inhuman speed, claws flashing in the dim light. The humans fired, but not to kill. Every shot was placed to blind, to confuse, to delay. Smoke grenades filled the air, and chaos took over. The commander pushed forward through the storm, reaching the cage. He smashed the lock open, pulling the terrified child into his arms. The boy's glowing eyes widened in shock, seeing a human face instead of a monster. "You're safe," the commander whispered. "We're taking you home." Behind them, the battle raged. The humans fought like no army the Zarkesh had ever faced. They did not form lines, they did not retreat in order. They fought like cornered wolves, striking from smoke, vanishing, then striking again. The Zarkesh roared in frustration, unused to prey that refused to break. The team pushed back toward the airlock, carrying the child. But as they neared escape, a massive shadow blocked their path. A larger Zarkesh stepped forward, taller than the rest, armored with bone plates and carrying a weapon that hummed with deadly energy. Its burning eyes fixed on the commander, and in a voice like grinding stone, it spoke for the first time. "Human." The commander froze. He had not expected the predator to speak his language. The creature tilted its head, studying him with something between curiosity and hunger. "You should not be here. You do not belong in the hunt." The commander's grip tightened on his weapon, his voice low and steady. "You stole a child. That makes it our fight." The predator hissed, a sound like steam escaping a furnace. It raised its weapon slowly, savoring the moment. The humans around the commander braced for battle, their hearts pounding, their breaths heavy in the smoke. The KRL child clung tightly to the commander's arm, eyes wide with terror. And in the silence before the clash, the Zarkesh leader whispered, "Then let us see if the stories about humans are true." The chamber was thick with smoke, shadows dancing across the walls as the Zarkesh leader stood in the human's path. Its burning eyes glowed like fire, its bone-plated body towering over the strike team. The KRL child trembled in the commander's arms, whispering words in his own tongue that no human could understand, but the fear in his voice needed no translation. The human soldiers formed a circle, weapons raised, but they knew brute strength would not win here. The Zarkesh were faster, stronger, bred for the hunt. Humanity's advantage was something else entirely: cunning. The commander's voice cut through the smoke. Split formation. Scatter. Without hesitation, the soldiers obeyed, diving into different corridors of the twisted ship. The Zarkesh leader roared, signaling his hunters to give chase. In seconds, the chamber became chaos, with shadows chasing shadows, footsteps pounding through bone-like tunnels, and flashes of light sparking in the smoke. But this was exactly what the humans wanted. They did not fight in straight lines. They did not hold ground like the KRL or march like machines. They vanished into the dark, laying traps, setting diversions, forcing the Zarkesh to spread thin. One soldier threw a sound grenade, its shriek echoing through the halls, drawing predators away. Another rigged a narrow passage with explosives, sealing off pursuers behind a wall of fire. Every move was meant to confuse, to divide, to make the hunters lose their greatest strength: unity. The commander pressed forward with the child, guided by one soldier who cleared the path with quick strikes and smoke screens. The boy clung tightly to the human's armor, his fear slowly replaced by something else: wonder. He watched these strange beings fight not with overwhelming force, but with cleverness, with sacrifice, with a kind of madness that somehow kept them alive. The Zarkesh leader pursued the commander directly, moving with terrifying speed. Its claws cut through walls, its body smashing through debris. "You cannot run forever, human," it hissed. The commander glanced back, his eyes cold. "I don't need forever. I just need enough." He triggered a device on his wrist. Instantly, a row of mines hidden along the corridor exploded, flames filling the passage. The shockwave threw the predator back, but it rose again, smoke trailing from its armor. It laughed, a deep, unsettling sound. "Clever. But cleverness will not save you." The humans regrouped near the airlock, battered but alive. They had lost no one yet, though every face was bruised and sweat-soaked. The child was placed behind a soldier's shield as they prepared for the final push. The Zarkesh leader appeared again, stepping through the smoke like death itself. Around him, more hunters crawled from the walls, surrounding the humans. It seemed hopeless. But hopeless was where humans thrived. The commander raised his weapon but did not fire. Instead, he gave a signal. The ship's walls lit up as charges planted earlier detonated in sequence. Explosions ripped through the corridors, collapsing tunnels, cutting off the hunters from their leader. The humans had never planned to kill them all. They had planned to split them apart, just like wolves dragging down prey by scattering a herd. Now the Zarkesh leader stood alone, facing soldiers who refused to run. The commander stepped forward, his voice steady. "You wanted to test us. Here's your test." The predator hissed, lowering its weapon, claws flexing. It lunged with the speed of lightning, but the humans moved as one. They did not meet its power head-on. One soldier slid low, firing into its legs. Another dropped from above, slamming charges onto its armor. The commander himself struck at the joints, targeting weakness rather than strength. Each blow was small, but together they tore away the monster's advantage. The Zarkesh roared, swinging wildly, but the humans swarmed like fire ants, refusing to give it a clear target. They were reckless, unpredictable, maddening. For the first time, the predator felt what its prey always felt: fear. Finally, the commander leapt forward, planting a blade deep into the creature's chest. The charges ignited, blasting it backward. The leader staggered, its burning eyes dimming. It hissed one final word, its voice shaking with disbelief: "Impossible." Then it collapsed, its body cracking against the floor, smoke rising from the wounds. Silence filled the corridor. The remaining Zarkesh retreated into the shadows, their hunt broken, their leader fallen. The humans did not cheer. They simply stood, breathing hard, holding the rescued child tightly. The commander looked around at his team. Every soldier was exhausted, but their eyes burned with the same fire. They had done the impossible. Not because they were stronger, but because they were human. As they made their way back to the strike ship, the KRL child spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet, trembling, but clear. "You fight different." The commander looked at him, his expression softening. "We fight to protect. That's the human way." The child stared at him, wide-eyed, as if the words carried a weight he had never known. For the first time, he felt safe not because of walls or weapons, but because of the strange, reckless courage of these humans. Back on the strike ship, as engines roared and the enemy vessel shrank into the distance, the commander sent a final message to Haven 4. "The child is safe. But this is not over. The Zarkesh will come again, stronger. And when they do, humanity will be ready." The crew sat in silence, staring at the stars ahead. They had won a battle, but the war was only beginning. And somewhere, in the endless void, the rest of the Zarkesh were already waiting. The strike ship returned to Haven 4 in silence. No one cheered when the engines touched down, and no horns or banners greeted them. But when the doors opened and the missing KRL child stepped out, alive and unhurt, a wave of relief swept across the colony. The other children rushed forward, their glowing eyes wide with joy, wrapping their small hands around their rescued friend. For them, this was not just survival. It was proof that the humans had kept their promise. The KRYL guardians bowed their heads, a gesture so rare that even the human commander was surprised. Warriors who once feared nothing now showed respect to humans, not because of strength, but because of something else, because humanity had done what others would not. News of the rescue spread across the galaxy like fire in dry grass. Stories of humans storming a Zarkesh ship for one single child reached every world. Species that had once looked down on humanity now whispered of them in awe. Some called them mad. Others called them reckless. But one word began to repeat again and again: protectors. In the great chamber of the United Earth Council, the commander stood once more before leaders of both Earth and KRL. The rescued child sat nearby, holding the hand of a human nurse, no longer trembling, no longer hiding. The KRL leader faced the humans, his scarred face unreadable, but his voice carried a weight that silenced the room. "We asked for protection. You gave more. You risked your own blood for ours. That is not something our people will forget." The commander's reply was simple. "We did what any parent would do. It doesn't matter if the child is human or KRL. Innocence is worth the fight." His words hung in the air, heavy and unshakable. The KRYL leader nodded slowly. "Now we understand. This is why the hunters fear you. Not because of weapons, not because of armies, but because you will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And that makes you stronger than any predator." Around the galaxy, other species listened. For centuries, the Zarkesh had terrorized them, taking children, proving that no one could keep the future safe. But now a new truth had emerged. The Zarkesh had been challenged, and defeated, by a species still young among the stars. Humanity had shown that protection itself was a weapon, and that no hunter could truly win against a people who refused to abandon the innocent. On Haven 4, life slowly returned to normal, though the shadow of the Zarkesh still loomed. The KRL children no longer hid from the humans. They played with them in the fields, learned songs in their strange language, and began to laugh openly. The myths of humans as monsters faded, replaced with stories of guardians who fought like wolves. One evening, as the sun set in gold and crimson, the rescued child approached the commander. His glowing eyes shimmered in the fading light. "You could have left me," he said quietly. "Many others would have." The commander knelt down so they were eye to eye. "We don't leave children behind. Not ours. Not anyone's." The boy was silent for a long time, then stepped forward and hugged the human tightly. The KRYL guardians who witnessed it said nothing, but for the first time, they saw their young embrace another species with trust. Later, when the stars filled the night sky, a message arrived from deep space. It was from the Zarkesh. The image showed their leader, his wounds healed, his burning eyes fixed on the camera. His voice was low, filled with anger but also curiosity. Humans. You are different. You break the game. You fight for the weak. This is not your end. This is your beginning. The hunt will not stop. We will test you again. And next time, more will come. The message ended, leaving silence in its wake. Some in the council trembled, fearing what was to come. But the commander only clenched his fists. Then let them come, he said. We'll be ready. And in that moment, everyone understood. The galaxy had changed. The deadliest warriors now trusted humans with their children. The predators had been forced to retreat by the stubborn will of Earth's sons and daughters. And in the hearts of many species, hope began to bloom. Humanity was no longer just another race among the stars. They had become something more, shields for the innocent, guardians of the future, protectors even of those who once called them enemies. As the KRL child fell asleep that night under the watch of his human caretakers, he whispered soft words into the dark. Now I know, monsters are not real. Humans are. And for the first time in galactic history, that word, human, did not mean weakness or chaos. It meant safety. It meant defiance against the hunters. It meant family. The stars above shone brighter than ever, but in the endless black between them, the Zarkesh stirred, restless and angry. The war was not over. It was only beginning. And somewhere in the darkness, the galaxy waited to see what humanity would do next.